Okay, so because I am a woman, I am fascinated with women of aviation. So tell us about this particular female group, the
You bet,
WASPs.
Sparkle, as you should be. This is the Women's Army Corps, or WAC, okay, World War II. The WASP is Women's Army Service Pilots. And of course, then this is irregular Army WAC here, okay?
And what time frame is all
This
of?
is all World War II.
Okay.
Now, the difference is the WASPs were delivering airplanes to go overseas. So let's say LA International Airport used to be Mines, MINES Field, and North American built P-51 Mustangs there by the thousands.
Wow.
Women would take them and fly them, let's say, maybe to a destination where they would ship overseas.
Oh, so
and then
these are
come
big
back.
planes because they were
Big
holding in the
planes.
Mustangs.
They were fighters, they were bombers, they were transports. Many, many, many lost their lives here in the United States. There is still one that took off from what is now LAX in a Mustang, never been found to this day. Her name was Gertrude, and I forget her last
Why
name.
were so many missing?
Well, remember, navigation aids and things like that were still pretty primitive. We don't have all the radar and things like that, cross country like we do. So a lot of times they were on a flight plan that, maybe got blown off course, maybe got into bad weather. If you get into bad weather and you get spatially disoriented, you could spin in or
I can
whatever.
only imagine.
Yeah, so
We've all been there in a car, so.
right. So they didn't get their really recognition until the 90s and any benefits, which is a travesty. So there are still a few alive today that did those harrowing things. Of course, the Women's Army Corps, they did things, they weren't pilots, but they did things on the ground to, let's say, support the men in the air. But the WASPs actually did the flying, and they're the ones that really, within the states here, got the airplanes from point A to point B.
Wow.
There were WASPs right here at Merced Army Airfield.
That's really cool.
And a lot of different places, Quartzsite, Arizona. Have you heard of Quartzsite,
Yeah.
right? There was a airplane training base there, and they were there as well.
Wow.
So, they were all over, and without them, we would probably have, had a harder time winning the war because all the men were fighting.
So we need people to do these jobs.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's impressive. You think it's cool? Hey, I drive a Mustang. You could say I flew a Mustang. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so continuing on with the women, what do we have over here? What do we have here?
Well, the WASPs and the WACs grew into Women's Air Force once the Air Force became the Air Force. So you can see here, this would be typical woman's uniform in the Air Force. The blouse, the long jacket, the uniform or the skirt, the cap, and this was the uniform.
They
for their
still had to
women.
wear a skirt? That must have been hard to get in some of those, like one solo planes.
Well, they didn't. These were enlisted. They didn't fly, so they did jobs. Let's say in administration or life support or places like
Where
that.
was their training area at? Did they have their own training area, or they were training with everybody
Their
else?
training area, typically they would go through basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio and then go to a tech school. If it was a medical assistant, if it was for administration, if it was for life support, the Air Force would then send them to a designated base to get their training, and then they'd get assigned, let's say to Castle or wherever it was. So, and also debrief, when the crews would come back from a mission, they would be in there to debrief the crew, what things happened on this training flight, how did you perform, did you get bombs on target? All of those things would come into play. So that's what they would do.
Women are meticulous about their facts like that.
Yes,
So
they
they're the
are.
right ones for that.
That's exactly right. Yeah, matter of fact, I had she was a lieutenant when I was in ROTC, and she had been in the space program. So there's a base on the East Coast, Hanscom Air Force Base, which had to do with a lot of Air Force satellite work and things like that. So a lot of the women went into that field as well.
And what do we have over here? So who's Linda Phillips?
Linda Phillips is a former U.S. Air Force KC-135 tanker pilot instructor. She was instrumental in becoming, putting together the first all-female flight crew here at Castle in Strategic Air Command and in the Air Force. And I believe that's about 1980, 81.
That's the first time we had an all-female flight crew. Wow.
That broke a lot of glass ceilings for women in the Air Force and is really the reason why we have, all-female flight crews today, even on bombers now, even on combat airplanes.
Wow.
That broke the glass ceiling, like I said, for all of these positions to open up for women, because women can fly an airplane just as good as a man can. So that really paved the way. She's a pioneer, and you can see they had nicknamed the all-female flight crew in that aircraft Fair Force One. So, and
That's pretty funny.
her and her husband, who was also a KC-135 pilot and instructor, both live in Clovis, so they're very local.
That is really
They do
cool.
come up and volunteer, and both dynamic people, but Linda's a very dynamic lady, fascinating to talk to, and her knowledge level.
And these were some of the planes that they were flying.
No, these are just some models. The planes they were flying would have been like,
Oh yeah, because some of these are before the 80s.
yeah, this aircraft right here,
Oh wow.
the KC-135. And, that's an airplane that takes a lot of skill to fly, especially when you're in, the refueling position, but also how to manage the fuel load, because you have weight and balance issues. If you, empty the rear tanks, guess what? You're going to be nose heavy. If you empty all the, so you have to really be watching what you do there. And now this is actually an all-female tanker flight crew, and I believe that's out of Afghanistan, Kazakhstan Air Base. So you can see what her pioneering did.
And for all over the world.
Yes, yeah.
Wow. Well, everyone has to come and check out these flights when they come to Castle Air Museum, and follow us on YouTube.
Glory, glory, hallelujah.